Namaste and a very good evening to all. I am Dr. Gayatri Ahuja, Presiding Officer of the IC of AYJ NISHT, Mumbai. I warmly welcome you all to celebrate the month of women's empowerment with a theme Empowered Women, Empowered Society. March is more than just a month, it's a movement. AYJ NISHT is here to honor women's power, resilience, and brilliance through various events, insightful discussions, and creative expressions. Today, AYJ NISHT is pleased to have a special guest who will share valuable insights on empowerment. Let's dive in and celebrate the strength of women every day. It's my pleasure to introduce today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Sangeeta Bagga-Gupta. Dr. Bagga-Gupta has had an eminent academic career, serving as a professor chair in multiple departments, including education, gender studies, rehabilitation research, language sciences, and communication studies at renowned universities in Örebro and Jönköping, Sweden, as well as in Italy, France, and India since 2007. Currently, she holds the position of visiting professor at both the Maulana Azad National Urdu University in Hyderabad, India, and French National Center for Scientific Research in Paris, France. Dr. Gupta's research is at the intersection of communication, identity, culture, and learning, where she employs ethnographically framed, multi-scalar, socio-cultural, and decolonial approaches. Her doctoral degree in communication studies from Linköping University, Sweden, and her postdoctoral work in deaf studies from the Gallaudet University, USA, have shaped her extensive body of work. She has had contributed significantly to the academic literature, editing over 10 international volumes and numerous special journal issues. Her forthcoming work, the Palgrave Handbook of Decolonizing the Educational and Language Sciences, Pedals with Springer Nature, is set to be released as open access in May 2025. She is fluent in spoken, written, and signed languages. Dr. Bagga-Gupta's expertise and dedication to bridging cultures, languages, and knowledge systems are truly commendable. AYJ NISHT is excited to have her with us today to share her insights. Welcome, madam. Welcome to this Women's Empowerment session.
Thank you, Gayatri, for that amazing introduction.
Thank you. So, ma'am, let me start with empowerment varies across cultures, often tied to the independence, education, and challenging systemic barriers. Its meaning evolves with identity and intersectionality. Madam, how do you define empowerment for women today, especially in complex cultural context?
Interesting framing of that question. I think the framing puts the spotlight on an understanding of women as individuals and the power that we have, not just as women, but as human beings, is to be in our relationships, whether that is professional relationships or whether that is relationships with our neighbors, our family members. So if empowerment is seen as something personal, individual, that we embody, that is inside of us, then a response would be of a particular kind, that we need to be able to draw in a salary, a woman needs to be able to stand on her so-called 2 feet, a woman needs to be able to make her own decisions. But if we turn this around and we understand empowerment in terms of what we are able to do for ourselves and within the context of those who we share our lives with, and that could be your partner, it could be your children, it could be your neighbors, it could be other human beings on the planet, then empowerment means something completely different. So one of the things that we need to understand, irrespective of whether we are sitting in Mumbai as you are, or in Jönköping where I am talking to you from, we are connected. And when we lose sight of this connection, then empowerment can become an empty word. So I wouldn't define empowerment with a point of departure in the individual, but in our capacity to be connected. We are connected online, but the connection is much more fundamental. So that is how I would look at this.
Wow. So you have spoken about the fluid nature of the empowerment and its dependence on the social structures. Wow. So yes, the connection do plays a very important role, be it hybrid or be it purely an offline or an online. But yes, the connection is the key thing that we need to keep in our minds when we talk about the empowerment. Moving further, empowerment is both a personal and a social experience, yet, measuring it is essential for assessing the progress. Now, indicators like education levels or a workforce participation are commonly used. Are these indicators enough, or can empowerment be measured? Or if at all, what indicators would you suggest?
So a short answer would be no.
Okay.
Like, common indicators like you're saying education, workforce participation, are they enough? A short answer is no, they're not enough. Those are points of departure for what it means to be a human being on the planet today. And I would, an indicator would be when the day when we don't have to celebrate Women's Day, or as you are doing, Women's Month, when we instead celebrate being human beings together with other human beings. Here I think of the term Ubuntu, the African concept, the concept that exists in a number of different African languages, and of course now in English because we are using it. The term points to the fact that no human being is enough in themselves. I am because of you, right? You introduce me as a distinguished scholar. I become that because of you, Gayatri. You are a distinguished scholar in this national institute where you are the head of a department. It is we together who create who we are ourselves and one another. So when I became a mother for the first time, 34 and a half years ago, I became something because of another, because of my child. And I think near your institution, there is this amazing sculpture that says the child is the mother, brings
Child
out.
gives birth to the mother. Yeah.
So that encapsulate what Ubuntu means and what I'm trying to get at. It is not enough. So the short answer is no. Empowerment, can it be measured? Yes, when we have created a more humane society for us all, when we have created possibilities for all of us to have some kind of baseline existence, and we are far from that. Every violent act at the individual level, but also every violent act at the societal level, points to the fact that we are not empowered. On the other hand, we are much more traumatized with the kind of things we see around us in 2025. So celebrating Women's Month becomes then a meaningless act unless we recognize the need to be together and to do things together. So what indicators would you suggest? I would think in terms of what are we doing, each one of us, these small acts of bringing more justice into one another's lives? What are we doing? In a space like India, I would think of people who serve our families, who don't live the kind of standard that we live. What are we doing to improve their lives so that our lives become enriched? So that is a fundamental part of what Ubuntu would offer us. And I think that there are these kind of terms in a lot of cultures, but we need to bring them up. And I think as nurturers, we human beings, women have the power to bring about change in their... I have 2 sons. I have the power to bring about change in a community by seeing to it that my children are children and not just sons, that they are human beings worth and who have the capacity to bring about change in their lives, whatever lives they choose. So that is for me an indicator. It is not how many people we employ or how many people are in the workforce, or it is making these kind of substantial changes so that when we have world leaders, we can turn to them with awe rather than with disgust, like we see sometimes in this polarized existence that we have. Yeah, so
again, you emphasized in direct manner the term connection, like what connection you have with your children and how, be it men, female, or whatever gender it is, how we are first as human being. So how we can, improve this human being. So that kind of connection again you emphasized. And you also emphasized the need of multidimensional measures in assessing the gender equity. Wow, a totally different angle. So, moving further, ma'am, your work spans gender studies, rehabilitation, communication, each contributing unique insights into empowerment. Now, how do these fields intersect to shape an inclusive empowerment framework, according to you?
good. Well, I think when you raise such a question, a very important question, because within academics, we are kind of put into these silos. We belong to different departments. But these departments or these terms like gender studies, rehabilitation studies, educational sciences, these have been created by us, right? And these are created in order to attend to issues out in our lives on the planet.
Yeah.
So what you're asking is that how can these fields intersect? The point is to recognize that we have actually looked at the complexity of human existence and we have created disciplines. And then we nurture upcoming generations of scholars within these disciplines. So when we look back into what life is, the human state, we need to come back to the realization that is the complexity, right? So the intersection needs to be a fundamental part of understanding human life. You can't just be aligned with just one of them. So when we are talking of gender studies, the term intersectionality was born and was created and emphasized by Black women, women of color, scholars of color, because they could not recognize themselves within the framings of mainstream or white gender studies. And this is really important because today, again, we are seeing a backlash that within gender studies, we are seeing that the mainstream continues to be white hegemonic.
Yeah.
Right? So where does the intersection come from? It comes from recognizing that we are not being creative and dynamic within our research because we are becoming siloed. So it was initially lawyers, scholars who were professors in law, who were scholars of color, who said, sorry, but we don't recognize ourselves.
Okay.
Right? And we are seeing that coming in again. So the intersection is artificial because we need to attend to the complexity of human existence. And we have learned to dissociate ourselves from the complexity. And then we are saying we should only look at it from education, not only for gender. But show me a woman who is not anything else than gender. There is no one. We have age as a very important criteria. We have race or ethnicity and skin color as an important criteria. We have functionality as a criteria. We have, you can go down on these. You can say someone who has a long nose, someone who is short. You can carry on. So where these have been created by us.
Yes.
So all these areas are part of what is the normal existence on the planet. So it is actually a dangerous situation that we have created. So if a scholar is only embedded in one particular area, we need to make space for discomfort for ourselves by saying, well, regular life, there is no person who is in regular life, there is no person who is only disabled. That person has to have a gender, that person has to have a sexuality, that person has to have age, that person has to, and then
so many factors. So the whole answer you gave from a third position, like in all conferences, you highlight this third position to see one aspect that how we are bifurcating or how we are making more dimensions, and again we are coming back to the original level. And you have highlighted the importance of interdisciplinary approaches in creating these inclusive policies. Wow. So moving further, ma'am, now, marginalized women, including those with disabilities or from the linguistic minorities, are often left behind in empowerment efforts. Now, true empowerment must be inclusive. Now, how can we ensure the empowerment reaches the most marginalized women?
A very important question, Gayatri, because what I have said so far could amount to or risks becoming interpreted in terms of that we should not have any categories. That is not my point. My point is to recognize that empowerment is everyone's business. It is not just the business of women to fight for their rights. It is more the business of those who are less marginalized. Each one of us is marginalized at some point in our daily lives, every week. Some point we are more privileged than others, and at other points we are more marginalized as compared to others who we are in contact with. But there are communities and there are people, I'm thinking of in the Indian context, there are people who are labeled as Dalits, for instance, and we know that within the Dalit community or people who identify as Dalits, there are hierarchies. There are people who are economically very well off and there are people who are not. So you have all these differences in every label that you can choose. Whose responsibility is it? So here I think it's really important for each one of us to recognize our own positionalities, to be able to articulate, who am I to do this for another? So what is my positionality to be able to support another person? What is in it for me? I would say for me, very often it is that this is what makes me human. When I'm a volunteer at elderly people's homes, it is because that is something I can give back
Mm.
in some sense to the local community. And each one of us can do this in multiple different ways. This is what I call millimeter changes. Each one of us, irrespective of our positionalities, I believe, has the capacity to make a difference to another person's life. And that might be a stray meeting at the local train station. It might be meeting the house help you have on a daily basis. It could be just saying a kind word to a stranger who seems to be lost. We have the capacity. Coming back to this issue of people who are marginalized, I think some of us need to interrogate, why do we sit in committees for the upliftment of migrants, for the upliftment of refugees, for people living in slums? Who are we to do this? What am I gaining from doing this? We seldom do that kind of interrogation. So I think we need to recognize that we are part of the whole, and we need to recognize our privilege whenever we embark on these projects to improve the lives of others. And creating inclusiveness comes back to the issue of that we are creating that because that gives us something.
Yeah.
I also think of a book that I just got acquainted with, and that book is called All the Lives We Never Lived. And when you think of whatever our privileges and marginalizations are, we have, each human being on the planet, we have met different kinds of setbacks, we have met different kinds of positive, you could use the word development or enlightenment, but each one of us can stop and then see that when a door shuts, that we have not lived a particular life. When another door opens, then we have had to shut specific lives. So when you think of people who are marginalized, we need to recognize that within ourselves, and then we need to recognize that that opens and shuts different kinds of doors. I don't know if this makes sense to you.
Wow. You have stated that empowerment is only meaningful when it reaches to those at the periphery of the society, as what I can say in one sentence. And with the whole discussion, what we had, if I have to make it short for a key takeaways, so I made 5 key takeaways. One, what's our positionality? That's really very important. I should know what I am and what my position is all about. Second, the connection is the most important aspect. Third, always see from the third position aspect and always think from a third position to have a better understanding of the situation. Fourth, be human first. Fifth, and the most important aspect, recognize that I am a part of the whole and the whole situation will be totally different. Wow. So
And
thank
that
you.
is empowerment. That is
Yeah,
empowerment.
that's what the concept of empowerment is. Wow. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's always a good learning experience with you. And thank you for sharing your valuable insights on this Women's Month that AYJ and ISSD is celebrating. And AYJ and ISSD extend a warm wishes to all the viewers. Happy Women's Month. And let's continue to celebrate and uplift the strength, resilience, and achievements of women everywhere. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri, for inviting me.